All right, so we know that November 4th is the NFL trade deadline. And I know a lot of Packer fans out there are like, well, okay, Brian Gutekunst, is he going to make any, major changes to this Packer roster? Brian Gutekunst has proven that he's willing to do whatever, whether it's the offseason or just before the regular season begins. He did that with Malik Willis. He did that with Micah Parsons. In the offseason, he went and got Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Nate Hobbs, Aaron Banks. He's not a stranger to going and making those big money acquisitions if it means for the betterment of the team. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, if you're talking about the betterment of the team, why are you mentioning Aaron Banks in that? Well, we all know that a solid offensive line and a a very deep offensive line is incredibly crucial to the success of a program throughout the season. And we already know that our offensive line has been incredibly banged up, and we're still yet to see really everybody just be full bore, whether it's starters and backups, everybody just be out there ready to go. So it is imperative that the Green Bay Packers do make acquisitions like your Aaron Banks, whether we love that signing or not, or even using a first round pick to go and get a guy like Jordan Morgan, who has proven himself this year and has shown glimpses of why Brian Gutekunst went and drafted him in the first round when he did. That being said, I want you guys to leave your comments. Do you think is going to make a trade prior to the November 4th trade deadline? Well, I know there are a lot of rumors out there. Okay. So, what are the rumors? Well, you've got teams contacting the Green Bay Packers, like the San Francisco 49ers, for Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Enagbare. So, are either of those guys on the blocks for Brian Gutekunst remains to be seen. We know that Rashawn Gary was in need of some desperate help opposite side of him, which then they go and get a guy like Micah Parsons. And to be honest with you, I've been a little disappointed with the output of Rashawn Gary's performance thus far. Now, he did start the season with 4.5 sacks. So I don't want to discredit or any of that type of accomplishments. Kingsley Enagbare has shown himself to be a reliable pass rusher out there as well. Don't forget, we're going to be getting back guys like Brenton Cox. So those are guys that can be very successful opposite side Micah Parsons. Now, do I want a world where the Packers trade Rashawn Gary or Kingsley Enagbare? Now, the offer would have to be quite attractive if I were the general manager to pull the trigger on something like that. Yes, you would be offloading his massive contract. However, this is what the Packers have been waiting for. This defense has shown glimpses of being historically great over the first two games of the season, and then the Dallas Cowboys game certainly happened, and nobody's forgetting that performance. But this still could be a fantastic defense. Am I saying this is going to be a historical defense? Probably not, but this is going to be a very good defense if everybody is there. Now, could the Packers stand to lose a guy like Kingsley Enagbare if they get an attractive enough offer, draft capital, all that stuff? Yes, I do think the Packers could stand to lose a guy like that because they are so deep there. Now, mind you, that's of course if everybody stays healthy, but there's also other guys swirling around. Okay. Romeo Dobbs is one of those guys that has been swirling around, and we've seen how good this dude is. This is the one wide receiver on this Packer roster that just comes back and he gets it. It reminds me of the Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams type connection where Devontae Adams knew what Aaron Rodgers was thinking, vice versa. Romeo Dobbs seems to know what Jordan Love is thinking. And so he's coming back to his quarterback when he sees he's buying time, all of that stuff. His hands have been great. You can't deny that. He's a great target in the red zone. We've already seen that. So a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is really, when you look at that depth and the depth pieces that are there in Pittsburgh, it doesn't look too great because it looks like, if you were to equate it to a basketball term, it's a bunch of guys that know how to box out and dive after loose balls. That's exactly what Aaron Rodgers has at the wide receiving core opposite of DK Metcalf. Okay. All the other pieces there are guys that know how to box out, get rebounds, and they know how to go for loose balls. Is that going to win them a championship there in Pittsburgh or at least take them to a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I think they need extra help, and what better piece than a familiar face? Now, it was just his rookie season, but Romeo Dobbs, Aaron Rodgers, that could be a great connection. So, will the Pittsburgh Steelers try to make an acquisition for Romeo Dobbs? I can absolutely see a world where Pittsburgh, if they haven't already contacted Gutekunst to go and get a guy like this. Dontavian Wicks has also been inquired about. Same thing with Christian Watson by the New York Giants, who are down Malik Neighbors. And the New York Giants, they look pretty solid now. They seem to have rejuvenated themselves, making the change at quarterback. So they need some wide receiver help there as well. Dontavian Wicks, Chris Watson, Roman Dubs, they've all been contacted by the Green Bay Packers. So if you were to lose, and I'm not saying, so leave your comments, let me know. If you were to lose either Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbare, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, now say we get the same draft capital for it, which one of those guys would you be willing to part with most? Okay, so for me, I think it's an obvious one. The obvious answer would be Kingsley Enagbare or Rashawn Gary to offload the contract that he has. But man, I really want to see Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons last the duration of the year together, because I think with Jeff Hafley's defensive schemes, I think this could be potential for a fantastic defense. Now, I wouldn't mind the Packers going out and making an acquisition at cornerback. However, I do have to eat some crow here and say I've made comments that Keyshawn Nixon isn't a starting caliber type a player at the cornerback position, but he certainly looks every bit the part of a starting cornerback in this league. Now, Carrington Valentine, I think, could be as well. But the depth isn't there, and I really would love to see. And I'm really still waiting to see something out of Nate Hobbs that I just haven't seen there yet. Now I do know he was injured and he's coming back and he's trying to get his legs back underneath him. He's trying to get familiar with Jeff Hafley's defensive schemes, all of that stuff. But I haven't been impressed with Nate Hobbs so far. I really wish I could say otherwise. Guys like Javon Bullard, I've been incredibly impressed with. The safety, Xavier McKinney, he's been quiet, but that's because, a lot of teams aren't throwing incredibly deep on the Packers so far because they're putting so much pressure on the quarterback, which is what us Packer fans have been wanting, wishing for and wanting. So, do we want to give that up? Do we want to, offload a guy like Rashawn Gary or Kingsley Enagbare? Probably not. If the Packers want to remain just as potent in the amount of pressures we're getting on the opposing quarterbacks, probably not. Leave your comments, and as always, go Pack Go.